Well, good morning to you. Welcome. And here I am in the garden. And I know I look a little bit like the mafia because of the dark glasses, but I'm not quite sure how to get rid of those. Garden's looking good. Here we are. You can see some of the daffodils have come to an end and things, but on the whole, it's looking pretty bright. And I have to take absolutely no credit for that whatsoever. That's all done by people who seem to know much more about it than I do. But it's all about mystery, isn't it? It's all about a road, it's all about a journey. Whatever you're doing, whether you're in the garden or wandering around, however you happen to be. So today we're talking about the road to Emmaus. We're talking about two disciples making the journey down from Jerusalem, heading to Emmaus. Now Emmaus, I have to tell you, it's about 12 kilometers from Jerusalem. It's not an easy walk. It's not a stroll down the road. It's not like walking down towards Coldstream from here. It's a steep road. It's dusty. It's dirty. It's through the desert. It's all over the place, really. So I'm having to debate: am I going to stand still or am I going to wander around? I think I'm going to wander. Somebody said to me, "You're far better standing than sitting, Bob." Actually, somebody else said, "You're far better not preaching than preaching at all." But we'll just stick with that. So these two people were wandering down the road, and many things have been said about this story. Many things have been said about the road to Emmaus. You know, people much more learned than me have written words and words about it. But it occurred to me today that nobody is writing it from our perspective of now, this minute. And I'm recording this on Thursday afternoon. And nobody else is writing it like that. It's our perspective, isn't it? Because 2020, and it's the 22nd of April today, 2020 is very different because here we are in lockdown. Here we are with the coronavirus all around us, wondering what our journey is, what our road is like. How are we doing? So these two young men, and they were young of course, who had been following Jesus, had lived through the horror of Holy Week, probably there on Palm Sunday for the triumphant entry, and then of course you don't need me to tell you about Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, the horrific events then, the desolation of Holy Saturday, the joy of Easter Day, and then, as we heard about last week, the appearances that Jesus made to the disciples, to the apostles, to where they were gathered, scared, locked in a room, not allowed out. Gosh, does that feel familiar? Yeah. Having doubts, desperate to touch, desperate to feel, desperate to have emotion. Is that familiar? Yeah, it is, isn't it? And so as these disciples were walking away, they thought it's all come to an end. They really didn't understand. And they were thinking what on earth was going on. Then Jesus suddenly appeared with them. But they were lost in it. They were lost in the darkness, the anger, the frustration, the fear, the questioning, the doubts, all those things. They were chewing the fat. That's not the Scottish TV programme, but if you haven't watched it, by the way, very funny. It's a bit rude, but very funny. Find it on iPlayer. They were wondering, what's the future going to be like? They were asking the questions. They built up so much to this man and what he was going to do. And then, now, gosh, these parallels are amazing, aren't they? Now we're questioning as they were. What is the future going to be like? How do we plan? What do we do? How do we go ahead? So what road are we on this second week after Easter? Well, there's Easter 3, by the way. The new lectionary changes everything. Very confusing. Very confusing. Anyhow, it's Easter 3, 2 Sundays after Easter. What road are we on? What's our journey like? How are we finding things? How are we seeing the growing in our garden? How are we seeing the new life? How are we seeing what's going on? What's our destination? What are we looking for? Grace and I have been talking about what do we plan for? We're not quite sure. We're not sure where things are, what things are going to do. But what we do know is that we're in this together. And so these questions that the disciples are asking the same, they're suddenly joined by this stranger. And what strikes me about this story is that as they're joined by the stranger, and I've just been joined by 2 dogs, you can probably possibly see one. Oh, thank you, Daisy, for doing that. Always greatly appreciated. As they were joined by the stranger, the thing that strikes me about it is that they told him the story. What they didn't realize was that they were telling Jesus himself the story about himself. And they were saying, have you not heard? Did you not see? You can't have got away from this. You must know what's going on. There was a thing on the news last night about a couple who are sailing around the world. They just arrived in somewhere, I don't know where. They got off the boat, they'd never heard of the coronavirus. No one had told them. They haven't been following the news. But they told the story of Jesus to Jesus. They shared their faith. They spoke about it. They spoke quite openly. Just as we do on Facebook, phone calls, talking, having the discussions, not being scared to say, this is what our faith's like, this is the good bit, this is the bad bit, these are the difficult bits. And then Jesus revealed himself to them through the breaking of the bread. The breaking of the bread, as we do. Now then, at the moment, we can't break bread together. We can't have our communion. We're denied that. And that is so painful. And I received communion this week on behalf of you all. Grace last week, and so it continues. But we find that very difficult too. But it's important that we do that. But Jesus revealed himself through the breaking of the bread. We reveal Jesus. We reveal ourselves through our actions, through the things that we do. It's interesting, it's Ramadan just starting, and on the news today, Muslims were talking about the difficulty of the Isfar, the meal that they like to have to break the fast, how they're going to be really struggling with not being able to eat together, just as we are. So this is bringing together world faiths, bringing together world peoples. But through our actions, through telling our stories, through enabling Jesus to be part of our lives, then we celebrate that which is there for us. We celebrate this, the living Easter. Easter's not just the story, it's not just the eggs. Oh, I've eaten my last one, by the way. It's not just the eggs, it's the full thing. And so this living Easter, we take the story of Easter off the page and put it, throw it, toss it and catch it into real life. It's not just a story, this is about life and about living. So I pray that during this Easter period, as we're all on the journey together, as we're all working and walking together, wondering, doubting, questioning, hoping for an answer, hanging on to any bit of information that we can get that might make it better, I hope that in the midst of that, we see the risen Christ, we see the risen Jesus, and we can celebrate him. We celebrate him day by day, all these aspects of it. And so I'm going to finish with a wee prayer. And it just came into my mind. It's not in any of the readings or anything else. It just came to me. And it said, Lord, help us to see you more clearly, to love you more dearly, to follow you more nearly, as we journey day by day. And so my love, my blessing, my care goes to each of you as we struggle through this journey. The road to Emmaus is not like it is today. Today is flats. Whoa, and you can whiz down at 70 kilometers an hour, 100 kilometers an hour. That's only 56 miles an hour. In those days it was steep, it was rocky, it was unmade. It was being created just as we're doing. So my prayers, my love, I hope very soon we'll be back in church together. I hope very soon we'll be breaking bread together. Jesus' love poured out in bread and in wine for each of us. But until then, I leave you with my thoughts. We're going to sing our offertory hymn, and then I will celebrate the Eucharist with you and receive bread and wine on your behalf. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The dogs have just said, we don't have to sing, Dad, do we? No, you don't. It's okay. But you do. Let's sing the next hymn.